welcome General Bondi.
Pam, please, but thank you.
Well, I'm trained to call attorneys general because I worked for two fine ones.
You did.
When I interviewed you as a candidate, you said that becoming Florida's Attorney General would be the culmination of your career. Has it worked out that way so far?
It really has, and I didn't realize how much of my experience as a prosecutor really would apply to this job. And it started, with a big surprise really the moment I took office. So it's been great.
Well, let's talk about surprises. You don't always anticipate, of course, what's going to happen in a new job. Nobody ever does. Talk about a couple of big surprises for you when you walked in the door, pretty much.
Well, I definitely wanted to streamline the office, which I've been doing. And you learn that you want to do everything at once, and there's so many great things we can do for our state, but you learn that you have to prioritize. And so I walked in to an office starting session less than 2 months later. So I had to prioritize with the legislation that I desperately needed passed, but also, the jobs are reactive. And what happened was the sheriff in the Panhandle called and said, listen, we have a horrible problem with this bath salt issue. And I said, what are bath salts? And I prosecuted for 20 years. And we started looking at it, and kids were overdosing left and right. It's a hallucinogenic, and it's deadly. And so I said, what can I do?
And they were called bath salts, but they really aren't bath salts.
No, they're not bath salts. They're in a packet about the size of a sugar packet, and it sells between $34 and $44. And it's a hallucinogenic, and it's right up there with cocaine and heroin. And kids were overdosing left and right, and in the Panhandle, they were scared to death because spring break was coming. And one of the side effects is you think you can fly, and they were scared to death about the kids and the balconies and spring break. So they said, what can you do? And as Attorney General, people call it power, but I call it responsibility. By signing my name, I can make a substance illegal for 90 days. And so I looked at this, and that's where my experience as a prosecutor certainly came in. FDLE was great. I called Commissioner Bailey. He was in my office in an hour with all the lab results. Sheriff McKeithen drove over from the Panhandle. He was great. And we looked at everything, and it was frightening. And so we knew we had to get this stuff off the shelves. And we sent an FDLE agent in the Tallahassee Mall, and he was able to buy this stuff. It's basically synthetic cocaine. It's manufactured in Asia. It was illegal in Louisiana, but it was legal in Florida and most other states. So I signed an emergency order after carefully looking at everything, and we took that off the shelves. And poison control, they've said that the numbers have really dropped, and now we have legislation that's just really, it's a great bipartisan effort going through the House and the Senate, and we're confident that that's going to get passed. And in fact, there's federal legislation as well, because this is truly deadly.
And I gather probably there are other states nearby where this is a problem. Have you reached out to attorneys general in those states?
I did, and I started looking at our state, and I said, you know what? Once you have to look ahead. And I said, once we outlaw this, where's it going to go? Alabama, spring break. So I called Attorney General Luther Strange, who is a friend of mine, and he said, Pam, I haven't heard of this. Let me look at it. He called me back a week later and said, this is a horrible problem, and he's outlawing it. They're outlawing it in Alabama, and again, now there's federal legislation, but it's so serious, it's a controlled too. So.
For parents out there, are you pretty sure that most of these salt, what do you call bath salts, are pretty much off the shelves in Florida?
It should be, it better be. And our law enforcement, they have been great in going in these places and pulling them off the shelves. But it is now illegal, and we're going to have permanent legislation, and we were just blessed that it came to us right before session, so we could immediately outlaw it before spring break hit in our state, and then go to Alabama and let them do it. And now again, there's federal legislation, so it's deadly, it's a hallucinogenic, and so hopefully we save some lives.
I'm sure you did. Speaking of drug abuse, used to talk all the time about illegal drugs, but there are legal drugs, prescription drugs, that are a huge problem, especially in Florida, and we're exporting them. And I know as Attorney General that you have been seeking legislation to address this very real problem. It's called the pill mill legislation. Update us, please, on where all that is.
Absolutely. And you know, we have legitimate, good pain management doctors for terminally ill patients, for people with chronic pain. That's not what these guys are. They're drug dealers wearing white coats. And your typical pill mill is a business, and there is a line wrapped around the building. It's cash only, $200 to $300. All these bad doctors are doing is sitting in the back and writing prescriptions. And you know, there are no laws in Florida to fight these things. And so they're popping up on every corner. They typically have armed guards because they're dealing in so much cash. And what's happened is Kentucky, all the other states, the majority of the states have the prescription drug monitoring program along with tough laws. The PDMP is just one small component of tough legislation that's needed.
What does PDMP stand for?
Prescription Drug Monitoring Program.
Okay.
And in Florida, we didn't have the monitoring program, nor did we have tough laws in place to go after these guys. And that has been my really mission since I have been elected, working hand in hand with the House, with the Senate, with Speaker Cannon, with President Herodopoulos, Representative Shanks, Senator Fasano, and the governor. And we've really all been working well together to get some tough legislation passed. In 6 months alone, in Broward and Palm Beach County, they prescribed 9 million oxycodone tablets. And that is unacceptable. And you know, it's been unreal. They say the numbers right now are 7 people a day are dying or overdosing from prescription drug abuse. We think when the new numbers come out, it's going to be even higher.
As you've looked into this problem, the question occurs to me is how in the heck could it have gotten this big and nothing has been done about it?
And that's a great question, and that's been the problem in Florida. We've had no tough laws, but now we're all working together and we're all fighting together because we are the epicenter of the country for prescription drug abuse. I had the Attorney General in Kentucky call me and say now that they have tough laws, all their drug dealers they're arresting are flying to Florida. They can tell them how much a plane ticket cost, round trip, to buy their OxyContin. In Ohio even, Mike DeWine, the Attorney General there, called me. People are flying into Florida. We are the destination for drug dealers in prescription drugs, and that's gonna stop.
Well, update us on the status of the attempt to stop the implementation of the federal health care law. I know that Florida is involved in a lawsuit to stop it, along with some other states. Where are we now in that lawsuit?
Well, and General McCollum, give him so much credit. He headed up this lawsuit, and he had 19 other states involved, and now we've added 6. We have a total of 26 states involved since I was elected. And we're the leader in it right now, and we're so blessed. We have the best ruling in the country. Judge Vinson in the Northern District of Florida ruled. We all know we need health care reform, but this isn't the way to do it. And what the federal government's trying to do is regulate us under the Commerce Clause simply by being alive and breathing air. They're trying to force us to purchase a product, and if we don't purchase that, we'll be fined or penalized. And it's so much more far-reaching than health care. It is a violation of our constitutional rights. I firmly believe it's unconstitutional. Right now, we have a great ruling in Oklahoma. Scott Pruitt has a separate lawsuit going. Ken Cuccinelli in Virginia has a separate lawsuit going. And we're going to be in front of the 11th Circuit on June 8th. And we're very proud to all be working so well together, all 26 states. We are in constant communication. And we're also very proud to have National Federation of Independent Business as a partner with us in this lawsuit. So I anticipate the 11th Circuit is simply a pass-through to the Supreme Court. So we will be in the U.S. Supreme Court very soon. And I firmly believe that this will be ruled unconstitutional. It is unconstitutional. The president's been dragging his feet. He's saying this is so important, but we need to get there as soon as possible. And I've been asking him, I've been publicly saying, President, we all agree this is important. So let's hold hands and let's get this to the Supreme Court as soon as possible and get a ruling from the Supreme Court, because that's what we need, because this is hurting our businesses, hurting our medical community, and our entire country.
Last question, we got a couple of minutes. A lot of people were devastated, people and businesses along the northwest coast, Gulf Coast, from the BP oil spill. Update us, if you would, on what your office is doing to try to keep payments flowing, to just compensation, if you will, to some of those businesses and to some of those people.
That's right, and it's been a year since the BP oil spill. And you know, I got to meet with Ken Feinberg, with General McCollum. It was interesting because it was after I was elected, but before I took office. So I got to hear a lot of promises that Mr. Feinberg made.
And who is he now?
Ken Feinberg is he was an independent agent, but the courts have ruled he can no longer be called that. He's a representative of BP who is negotiating this $20 billion fund that BP set aside to help all of the Gulf states. So we have, I met with him and I told him I was disappointed. We needed more transparency in the process. We needed more adjusters on the ground. It wasn't fair that if you're in the Panhandle and you call for help, you're going to get somebody out of state, and every time you call, you get a different operator. So he has been listening. There are some things, they're still behind in claims. We're not happy with that. But we let him know that we're not happy, and we've been doing everything in our power to make sure that Florida is properly compensated. Because another thing, of course it affected the Panhandle, but we're a tourism state. And our entire state was affected by this oil spill. And we are going to do everything in our power to be sure that BP is held accountable.
General Bondi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.